This is Ed Robinson. We'll be today discussing Excel basics. The first thing we might consider is how an Excel spreadsheet would differ from a calculator. For example, if we were going to do a simple calculation in Excel, let's say you wanted to work out the VAT on 40. So we'd multiply that by 20%. And you can just see down there that the answer indeed is 9. I'm going to do the same thing in Excel. Now, I don't expect you to follow this actually. I just want to see what the result is, the overall picture of what we're doing. If I put 45 in here and my 20% in here, and then I find the result in here, which I'm going to show you all about this later, and that will calculate the same result that we got before. Well, how does Excel differ from the calculator? First of all, we can put some nice headings in here, the amount of money that we've got and the percentage that we're dealing with, and then this will be the VAT that results. But the second thing about Excel is that you can change things. So if you want to work out the VAT on 90, which is double, of course, and that should give us 18. We can even change the percentage if the Chancellor decides to put the VAT up, then this will be the new value of VAT. So the idea of Excel is that we have embedded formulas, and they can be changed. The values can be changed, but the formulas remain embedded. So let's start from the very beginning. We've opened our Excel spreadsheet and we're going to enter some data. So I could click somewhere with the mouse and then I could enter a number, for example. Now take a look up here, this cross and the tick, they weren't there before. So what we need to do is to enter the data by clicking the cross. Now you'll see that tick and cross don't appear unless you start to, I'll click here, and as I type a number, you watch the tick and the cross appear. If you change your mind, you could click the cross or press the escape key as well as another way of changing your mind halfway through. But let's say that I want to show you that entering this data is a two-stage process. If I wanted to now, I could make that red by clicking up here, or I could make it bold, for example, as well. Or I could do Control B to make it bold as well. But let me just try that again. If I put a number in, any number at all, and then the tick and the cross appear. But if I go now to try and make it bold, it won't work. And if I try to make it red, it won't work. And that's because we haven't properly entered the data. So that entering the data is a two-stage process. So we've done the first stage, and now the second stage, we can tick. That's the safest way to do it, is to complete the second stage, is to tick the tick at the green tick. Now, another way of entering the data, if we type our data in, if I press the Enter key, then that also enables me to now make it bold and underlined and so on. Another way of doing it, if I enter my data and then I can click elsewhere, that also has the effect of doing the two-stage process. Another way of entering the data, if I put the number in and I press any of the left-right arrow keys, that also enters the data. If I've entered some data, how do I change it? Well, many ways. If I click on the data that we want to change and simply type over the top of it. Another way of, if we want to just modify the data, let me just put in a bigger number in here for a start and just see how I can go about changing it. So I'll click the green tick up here. How do I change that data? Well, for example, I can click up here in the formula bar area, click like this, and then I can delete to the left with the backspace delete key. I can delete to the right with the delete key. I can highlight bits. I can therefore type over the top of the highlighted bits. And then when I'm finished, I can safely click the green tick. Now, another way of doing it is to actually double click on the cell. And that takes me into the cell. And then I can do all of those things that I've just showed you. And of course, the left and right arrow keys don't behave like they did before. Then you can move inside the cell using the left and right arrow keys. Moving text around the screen, around the spreadsheet, you've got your normal cut and paste. So what I'll do, I'll right click on this, is probably the easiest way to do it. You could do it from the menu, of course, and we could do a copy, and then we could do a right click over here and then do a paste, just like we normally do. Now notice that we've got the ants running around this cell here. That means that the data is still in the clipboard. So if I were to paste again, you see the data is available. But if I press the escape key, then it will no longer be available. So if I try to paste, I just can't paste anymore. So that is a bit of a difference when you're cutting and pasting from Word. So if you do a cut and paste from Excel, if I click on what I want to cut, and I cut with the ants running around, and then I go elsewhere and paste, and then the data is moved. Now, within Excel, there is a better way, I think, of doing that. If I want to cut and paste this bit of data here, the simple way is to go around the edge here, not there, anywhere but there, which has another function. So I'm going to now just hold my mouse on the edge and drag it down, and that effectively does a cut and paste. I'll just do that again. Go anywhere around the edge, and you get that arrow, the broad arrow, and then just move it, and then it drops. Now, if I want to copy and paste, I hold down the Control key, and you see as I move onto the edge here, it's very fine. I get a little plus sign appearing as well, and as soon as I drag that down, then you can see the plus sign still appearing. I let go of the mouse, and then I let go of the Control key, and you'll see that is effectively copied from one place to another. Very, very useful. I use that all the time. Let me just clear all this data. One way of selecting the whole of the spreadsheet is by doing Control A. That selects everything. I'll just click to get rid of that. Another way of doing it is to click up this top left cell here, click that, and that selects everything as well. Now you might say, okay, I'll press the delete key. Just remember cell B3, by the way, it's just got red in it. If I now press the delete key, then it looks like everything's knocked out. But let me just click back into B3, because you'll find that the formatting hasn't gone. So really the best way to do that is to highlight the sheet and then go to edit and then clear all, or yes, clear all would be the best thing to do. Now if I type in here, you'll find that it doesn't have that formatting, so we've cleared our sheet completely. Let me just type in some values in here, and I want to select all of those. Well, we click in the middle one, in the middle, I would call that like a Swiss cross. We get the broad Swiss cross, and then just drag down, and that will highlight all of the cells. Then you can make them red and do all sorts of things with them. I'll just take the red off for the moment, which I can do in here, automatic color. Okay, now when I highlighted those, it could be a bit disconcerting. The first one is still white. The background is still white. I used to find that a bit perplexing, but there is a reason for it. Not a very good reason, but if you were to type something else now, if I typed now, I'll type from the keyboard, I'll type something, it actually goes into that cell, and that didn't work as it should have. I'll just do that again. And now just highlight it all, press any number at all, and that will enter into that position. So I think that's today's bit of useless information, really, but that's the way it works when you highlight. You can consider them all to be highlighted. If I want to, say, move those around or duplicate them, I can hold down the Control key and just drag them from one place to another. Here's an interesting tip. If you want to delete all of those, then you grab this little fill handle, which I'm going to show you how to use properly in a moment. But if you just drag it back up, you'll find that that's all deleted. Well, as I mentioned, we'll talk about this fill handle. Well, if I type a number and then I grab hold of that fill handle here, the bottom right, then that will duplicate all of the numbers. But if I did the same thing and held down the Control key as I go down, it will increase them into a series. If I type Jan in here, then it has a built-in that produces the months. And if you have Monday, for example, Mon or Monday, and you drag that down, you'll get the same thing using the fill handle. You can have more subtle effects by dragging. For example, if I have 1 and then I had 3, which is going up by 2, and then I highlight the two of them, and then I grab the fill handle, how about that? It goes up by increments of 2 each time. Very clever little beast is Excel. But it's even better than that when you think about it. If you have some sales figures like this, and they're sort of going up a bit, we're not quite sure how they're going up, something like that. They're increasing, but you want to know what the next one is based upon the trend. So what you can do, it's really quite amazing, is if you hang on to that and then drag it down, and you'll get your you'll get an increment based upon, well, it looks like some sort of mathematical linear regression. It could be quite complex what's going on there, but it predicts in a linear basis, straight line basis, what it's going to be. Well, that doesn't look too good with those decimal places, so maybe we could change them down. Up here is the decimal places. You can either increase the decimal places or decrease. I'm a bit surprised it won't allow me to do that, actually try to change the decimal places from here. So it looks like what we have to do is to go down as far as we're going to be interested in. To change the number of decimal places, we could go through, right-click, and then format cells, and then we have to choose number, and then choose the number of decimal places. That's probably the best way to do it. I won't do that. I'll just show you another way, and that's by using these up here, increase, decrease, decimal. It's a bit of a nuisance, actually. If you try decreasing, well, I will try to decrease. It will do what it's asked. It'll decrease the smallest one, so I'll take that down to 2, which is not really what I want. So what I should have done is increase first, but I'll increase from there. And therefore, so you just have to play around with these a little bit, actually. Sometimes you have to increase and then decrease, unfortunately, but okay, that seems to be okay. So we've got eventually we've got 2 decimal places. We'll consider now using formulas, probably the most important part of Excel. Let's say I have a couple of numbers here and I want to add them up. Well, to add numbers, we need to use a formula. So here's the most important rule for today. Formulas always start with an equal sign. So I type equal. Please remember that. Always use an equal sign to start off the formula. So what I'll do it by longhand. I'll type in the formula, the cell reference you can see, which is A1. And then I'm going to add them together. So now the next cell down is going to be A2. So I type in A2 and then click, and that gives me the result. Let me just do that again using another method. Because what we can do is to press the equal key and then click on the first cell. Instead of typing in A1, we click on that. Then I type my plus and then click on the second one. Isn't that nice? Makes life easy. So we can then just add them together like that. Another way of adding together two numbers is by using the auto sum. You can see the auto sum. You might just be able to see it up here. The auto sum. I'm going to click on that auto sum once. Now see what it's trying to do. It's lassoed the numbers with the dotted line, and it says equals sum A1 with a colon. Now a colon means 2, T-O, A1, 2, A2. There might be like 5 numbers, A1, 2, A5, for example, but in this case we've only got 2. So if we take a good look at this and we agree with it, we could press the enter key, but as I say, the safest thing to do usually is to click the tick. You could very well just type that formula in for yourself. Just type it longhand equals sum A1 colon A2. And there's the result. Once again, it's added the numbers together. I want to show now how to multiply numbers. So I'll just get rid of that formula for the moment. What I could do is if I type something over the top of it, then it will replace the formula. You should be careful of that sometimes. If you type something, your formulas will disappear. You can see there's no formula up the top. So all we've got now is 3 numbers. I'll just delete all this stuff as well. Highlight this and press delete. Now what I want to do is to multiply each of the numbers on the left by 2. So I'm going to remember the golden rule, equals. Always start your formulas with an equal sign. Now I'll do it the long way for the moment. Equals A1 multiply, which is shift and asterisk, but you could more easily use the asterisk on the numeric keyboard, then you don't have to press any shift key, times 2, and then click my tick. And then equals, well, let me do it the shorter way. I'm going to click on the 14 rather than, I could just type in A2, that's fine, but multiply by 2, and see we're multiplying by 2 as we go down. So always click in the cell that you want the formula to, the result to appear into. Common mistake, you try to click on the one you're dealing with. Equals, and I'm going to click on that and then multiply by 2 and then click the tick. Okay, so they're all multiplied by 2. And as I mentioned before, that Excel is using embedded formulas, so that if I were to change this one here to something else, then you watch, the result will change as well automatically. Now here's a tip. If you hold down the control key and try the grave key. Now the grave key is just below the escape key on the top left of the keyboard. It looks like an apostrophe, but it's what they call a grave apparently. So I'm going to do a control grave, and look what happens. You see the formulas appear here as well. Now if I click it, do it again, then it brings me back to normal. So that's a good way of investigating a spreadsheet. It's a good idea if you come across a spreadsheet for the first time, do a control graph and you'll see what people have been up to. Now, as you can see, I've multiplied each of these numbers by 2. You can see the 2 up here each time I go down for my formula. Well, what I want to do is to generalize this, because the 2 that I'm multiplying by, I want to put here. So I'll put a 2 there, and I want to multiply each of these numbers by this to give you these numbers here. And it should obviously give the same result as we've got at the moment. So let me do it. I've got here equals A1, and this is a very nice feature of Excel. If I click into this formula, it shows me the cell in blue that I'm referring to at the moment. Now let me see, I've got a 2 here. Now you could just edit this, but I'm just going to be clever here and highlight the 2 and then click on D1. Now you watch, the formula D1 will replace the 2. Okay, so this says equals A1 by D1. Now you could just as easily have typed the whole thing in, which is what I think I'll do for the next one, just so that you don't get confused. So I'm going to say equals, well, I won't type, I'll click, and then multiply by 2, yes, but this cell up here, the 2, is D1. Okay, and then I can do the next one using the same technique, equals that, and then multiply by 2. Okay, and then click. And you can see now, if I wanted to change this number here to something else, well, first of all, you see that it's worked. It's just multiplied every number by 2. But the beauty is, if I now want to change this to 3, watch what happens as I click the tick. They all change instantaneously. Let me just go back again. I did, in fact, forget to mention something which in the logic of this argument. So I'm going to start again. I'll just get rid of that 3. And indeed, I'll get rid of all the formulas as well. Let me just start at the beginning. I said I wanted to multiply these by 2. So I'm going to, what was the first thing I do? I press the equal. Then I click on the on that, and then multiply by 2. Okay, and then I click on that. Then I do the same thing again, equals that, multiply by 2. Once again, press equal, I click on this, multiply by 2. And so each of those numbers is hardwired, if you like. They're all multiplied by 2. But do you remember how, when I could copy things down, remember if I have a 2 and then I just drag it down, that makes a series of 2's. Well, see that 2 we've got here? Let's see if the same thing will apply when I do that. First of all, I'm going to just delete all my formulas and start again. And I'm going to put the first formula in again. Sounds like a waste of time, doesn't it? But equals A1 multiplied by 2. Now, I just showed you that that 2 can be dragged down when I drag the 2 down. Well, let's try it here, you see. Equals A1 by 2. Then if I now drag down, you'll see, if I look at this, is what I typed in, obviously, but this one has got A1 by 2, and this one is got A3 by 2, which is really very nice indeed. And that's the whole thing about the way Excel works, is that you just drag down, you can just repeat formulas from place to place. It does make life very convenient sometimes, Excel.